guys, and welcome to my channel, the Bronze Sky Library. So today, because it is February, and February has Valentine's Day in it, so that means love, we are going to be talking about fantasy romance / romantasy books. And yes, I know it's past Valentine's Day, but I'm just gonna say the whole month of February is the month of love, okay? So I'm still gonna share some books with love in it, okay? Okay, thanks. Anyway, so as you can see from the title of the video, it's going to be a video about books to read other than ACOTAR / Fourth Wing. And I have nothing against ACOTAR, nothing against Sarah J. Maas at all, because honestly I've never read any Sarah J. Maas books, haven't read ACOTAR, haven't even read Fourth Wing. I know that's Rebecca Yarros and not Sarah J. Maas, but that has gotten a lot of hype. A lot of hype. And so I want to share books other than those. And it's become like this in the past few months, 5 months. It's been a Utah girl thing to do to read ACOTAR. I don't know what it is, but all of the girls in Utah, especially the Mormon ones, are reading ACOTAR. I mean, they gotta get it somehow, right? But anyway, and even if they're married, they've been reading it too, so I'm like, I don't know what it is about ACOTAR. Maybe I should read it and find out. However, I just want to shed light on other romantasy books / fantasy romance that are just as good or even better, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I just think these books need a lot more hype than what they're getting. Anyway, yeah, so moving on. Okay, we're going to start off with one of my favorite standalones that I read, I think within the last few years, and that would be Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is so good. So, Sorcery of Thorns. Let's talk about that for a second. It's a standalone. I guess you would categorize it as fantasy romance instead of romantasy. So fantasy romance it's a fantasy with romance in it. And then romantasy it's a romance with fantasy in it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a fantasy romance. It has a lot of fantastical elements in it. It has a library in it, and with books that come alive, that come into that turn into monsters, and I guess you could say they're grimoires, and they come alive, and anyway, it's cool. And it's lovely. I think I've mentioned this book in a past video of mine. It was standalones that you should read. And yeah, I just hold by this a lot. This book is so good and I really enjoy it. I love the main character and the romance in it. Nathaniel, he was great. It's kind of, in a way, you could say it's enemies to lovers, not necessarily enemies to lovers, but yeah, you get the gist. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than this was fun, but if you enjoy libraries and if you enjoy reading, which I'm sure you do because you're here on my channel watching a video about books, then I'm sure you enjoy reading. So if you enjoy reading, if you enjoy libraries, if you enjoy fantasy, if you enjoy romance, this has it. If you enjoy, there's a character in here that is mysterious, and he's kind of this, he's kind of he's a demon, and kind of spiritual aspects to him, and he's so cool. He was my favorite character. Silas, love it. If I could have a full book about Silas, I would 100% read that and devour it. And I also love Margaret Rogerson's writing in the book. It's so, I guess I remember it being it was simple but beautiful, and yeah, I think this deserves a lot more hype than what it has. I mean, I know it came out a few years ago, a while ago, and I remember people did read it when it came out and people did enjoy it and stuff, but it's not at the same level as like ACOTAR, I would say, because like on hypeness. And so I just think this deserves a lot more hype, because what's not to love for you romance readers, right? Yeah, anyway, read this book. It's really good. Alright, and then the next two books that I want to talk about, they are in the same, there's like 4 books in the series, but I want to mainly talk about the first 2 books, especially the second book. But that would be The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, and then Enna Burning by Shannon Hale. These books are phenomenal. The first book has a lot more, so these books aren't necessarily romantasy, they are fantasy romance, because there's a little bit less of the romance side. I mean, there's romance in it. Shannon Hale loves to put romance in her books, so of course there's gonna be romance. But it has more fantasy than it does romance, but it's still a lovely read. The first book has more romance in it than the second book, and we'll get to that. But yeah, the first book, it's about this girl who she's a princess, and she is being like courted off to another land to marry the prince of that land. And then something goes awry, and her like lady-in-waiting like kicks her off of like the carriage and is like, bye-bye, bitch. Just kidding, she didn't say that. Anyway, she was like, see ya, I'm gonna be the princess now. Because nobody knows who Ani is in, like, when, yeah, no one knows what she looks like when she goes to this new place. So the lady-in-waiting is like, haha. So she takes her place, and Ani has to like try, or Annie, I don't know. I want to say Ani, but whatever. Anyway, so she has to try to like get back to, she has to try and get to this new place on her own, and she has to try and convince them that she's the actual princess and stuff like that. So anyway, but she ends up going in disguise as a goose girl, so she takes care of the geese, and she is able to talk to animals, she's able to control, it has an elemental magic to it, so she's able to control air, essentially, so she controls the wind and stuff like that. And it's really fun, and it's really good, and she starts to fall for someone throughout the book, and it's lovely. And I think you should all read that, because it's lovely. And then the second book, it's the second book in the series, but it's about Enna instead of Annie or Ani. And so we meet Enna in the first book, and so then the second book is Enna's point of view, and it's not re-going over what we go in the first book. It's just, it's a sequel, basically. So you can definitely read these like on their own, but I would recommend starting with the Goose Girl and just like reading them all, honestly, as if it were like a series. I mean, it is a series. Yeah, you should just read it. But Enna Burning, it's not necessarily a romance. There is romance in it, but it's darker, and she does, like, there's romance in it, but there's toxic, and there's a toxic romance, and it doesn't glorify the toxic romance, and so that's what I like about it. It's not glorifying it. It's actually horrible what happens. So yes, if you like lighthearted reads, I would go with the Goose Girl. If you like dark, I would also go with Enna Burning. If you like both, go with both. If you don't like both, still go with both. Anyway, it's fantastic. And in Enna Burning, the elemental magic is that she can control fire. And so if you like firebending, read Enna Burning. And also, I just love these two characters in general, and they're just powerhouses. And I love Shannon Hale's writing, because she really knows how to write women, and she knows how to write strong women roles. And meaning strong women roles as in, like, Annie, she's a princess. Like, she's, well, like, manicured and stuff like that. She's she's not, you could say she's like a girly girl. She's not one of those like, I am not like other girls kind of girl, right? She has this nature and nurture about her that is also very, very strong. So I just love the way Shannon Hale writes her female characters, and I think you guys should read these books. And if you want to read the third and the fourth book as well, the third book is called Rivers of Secrets. The main character is a male named Razzo. There's also romance in that. The fourth book is the character, it's Razzo's sister is the main character. There's not really romance in that one, but if you want to read the whole series, basically the whole series, except for the fourth, has romance in it. So I just highly recommend these books. Alright, and then another book, it's more of the fantasy romance side, and it's more of Sanderson romance than anything else. Sanderson isn't known for his romance because he's not great. He's not great at writing romance, but this book of his is considered his romance book, and that would be Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. So Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, like I said, is a Sanderson romance. He's not known, again, for his romance, and so this is more of like, it has mostly fantasy in it, and then these characters end up, you know, it's, you know by the end they're gonna get together, so it's not really a spoiler, but because it's, like, this book is marketed as Sanderson's romance, basically. But yeah, it's an interesting story. So like there's these two characters, they both do like these kind of like art things. Like Yumi, she's a rock stacker. She stacks rocks to like call upon spirits basically. And yeah, that's considered an art. Stacking these like piles of rocks in a way that, you know. So it's interesting. And then there's Painter. He is in he's in a different world than Yumi is, and his art is he draws paintings that makes, so in his world there are living nightmares, and he will paint these like paintings to make these living nightmares like turn into something that is not as bad as this like living nightmare. It turns them into like innocent little things or whatever. So those are those two characters, and then they end up one day like kind of like sharing a body in a way, and they each go into each other's worlds, and so like they're together the entire book basically, and they just they get to know each other, and they start falling for each other and all that things. And if you like romance, it's there. it's one of those like, it's one of those like slow burn romances basically, because it's just them like getting to know each other, and I love slow burn. And while again Sanderson isn't the best at romance, I think he did a pretty good job at making these characters get to know each other and fall for each other in that organic way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I mostly enjoyed it because of the fantasy elements, and I loved the dynamic between these two characters. And Sanderson is known for his magic systems and his world building, and he does a fantastic job in this. And so hats off to Sanderson with this book. I really, really enjoyed it, and I think this one should have more romance readers reading it, because a lot of Sanderson readers read this one, but I think people who mainly read fantasy romance or romantasy would enjoy this. So yeah, read it. And then the last two books that I want to recommend, they are more on the hyped side of things. They are very close to, you'd say, the hype of ACOTAR and Fourth Wing, but in my opinion, I think the writing with these books are amazing. And I think more people should read these books and hype these up even further. Even though the hype is already pretty great on these, I just love these books, and I love the story, and yeah, these two books are more romantasy than fantasy romance, but that would be Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. These books are beautiful. Like I said, they are romantasy books, and they kind of feel very like historical fiction almost, like historical fantasy, I would say, because it just feels very historical. It feels, I think it is like reminiscent of World War II and like that era of time, and because there's a war going on, I guess you could say it's like a god war. There's a couple of gods and they're in war with each other. They have soldiers and they're trying to work out their beef. So there's these two characters, Elizabeth and Roman, and it's enemies to lovers, if you want to know that. And it's beautifully done. So they're basically pitted against each other. They both work at a newspaper, and they both are trying to get the promotion. And so they're pitted against each other, and it's lovely. I love their banter between each other at first, and I love everything that's going on with them. But yeah, these two, it's what I love about these two books is that there's this war going on, and Elizabeth ends up going to the front to write about the war that's going on, and Roman kind of follows her. So I love the way that it's written where like there's this war going on, yet these two people still end up falling for each other. It was done in such an organic way. It's kind of like how you will go throughout life. Things are hard, you're going to work, going to school, and yet you still end up meeting someone and finding love, at least for other people that have found that. I have not. But anyway, it's like, it's written really well. It's written like it's done in real life. Like, it was, I don't know what I'm trying to say. But anyway, I just think, and Rebecca Ross's writing is just so good, that like she writes war in such a way that felt so real. It reminded me of Wonder Woman. There's like a scene in Divine Rivals where they're at the front and they're in the like place in between the like, they're in the trenches. That's big. Yeah, sorry, I'm really bad with words, but they're in the trenches and bombs are going off and all these things, and it just reminded me of the scene in Wonder Woman where they're in the trenches at no man's land, and then Wonder Woman goes and fights and all of that jazz. So they did it in that way. I think Wonder Woman filmed and made war look, like it should be like war. Anyway, so the way Wonder Woman is kind of like how that was written, and I loved it, and it was beautifully written. So anyway, and also the way that the two characters just like adore each other, I don't know, it's beautiful. So yeah, you guys should read these books because they're beautiful. So yeah. Alright, so those are all of the books that I wanted to recommend to you guys of like books that you should read other than ACOTAR, because they are also fantastic. I mean, you continue reading ACOTAR, that's fine. I just think these books deserve some of the hype. So anyway, if you guys have any like romantasy / fantasy romance recommendations, please leave them below, because I am apparently in my romantasy / fantasy romance era. Like everyone likes to say, these eras, Anyway, I mean, I'm currently reading Strange the Dreamer. I'm pretty sure that has romance in it, right? So anyway, leave recommendations below, and yeah, like if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to subscribe, and yeah, just do all the things. Alright, I will see you guys in my next video. Alright, bye!